Hey guys, this is Hetu and welcome back to etlqalabs. First of all, I wish you all a very happy Navratri. And in this video, we will look at a very important and also very long awaiting topic, that is ETL test plan and ETL test strategy, right? So this is something that I have received a lot of emails and a lot of comments as well on the YouTube channel, and I think this is one of the important aspect from the interview perspective as well, because when you go for the interview, they will so when you are able to answer all the ETL testing related questions, they will definitely would like to understand from you that how do actually you go about the test planning and test strategy, right? So that's the reason I think let's start with this video, and I hope that this will be helpful for you. And you next time when you appear for the interview, I think you'll be able to answer it, right? So, guys, what is test plan what is test plan and what do you think about the test plan, right? And how it is different than the test strategy, right? So we will discuss each and every detail about it, and then hopefully that will be able to clear up all your doubts, right? So first of all, let's understand what is test plan. So test plan is basically it's a document that basically defines the scope, objective, test approach, and the process that you are going to use for the testing a particular software or hardware products, right? So this is the definition, right? So it's basically a set of rules, regulations, right? Or I would say the definition that will cover various items, so that we will walk through each of them. But for now, you understand that this is a document that basically defines the scope, objective, approach, process for testing a software, right? And then what is the test strategy then, right? How it is different than a test strategy? Typically, test strategy, for example, when you're, so the test strategy and test documents, it's a very confusing topic, okay? I mean, in many cases or in many companies, it is a very same document, right? But if you go to bigger organizations, and in bigger organizations, we have the test plan and test strategy. There are two separate documents, right? And test strategy is basically it's aligned to the organization goal. I mean, it's on the higher level, and then test plan is more of a project level, right? So for each of the testing projects or each of the projects, you can have the test plan, separate test plan that basically derives that is basically derived from the test strategy, right? So test strategy is more of a organization level or org level. However, the test plan document is basically to cater the needs of a particular project, right? We will discuss about all this, but for now, just understand that test strategy is at the bigger level, yeah. So, for example, if I take an example of, for example, we'll take off let's say one company, let's say maybe TCS, yeah. Take an example of TCS. TCS is a big company which is a service-based industry, right? Service-based organization who actually provides the software, solution to various of its client. Now, what happens within TCS? Let's say there is a separate test strategy document, right? And test plan is something that is basically on the project level. Okay, project level plan. Here it's a organization level or it's a group level probably, right? So it's not mandatory that we have only one single test strategy document, let's say within TCS guys. There can be many, right? But it is more on a bigger, wider group, right? Let's say, for example, we have TCS is having different clients, right? So let's say they have the finance clients. BFSI, we called is a BFSI, banking and security insurance domain, right? Which are basically one of the vertical, I would say. And then we have other one, let's say healthcare, right? Healthcare domain. And then you also have, let's say, manufacturing, right? Manufacturing. So these are the different verticals or different departments, I would say. and these particular different verticals basically looks out for the different kind of clients. For example, in BFSI there are multiple investment banks. For example, um, let's say UBS, Credit Suisse, right? Credit Suisse, and then you have Deutsche Bank, something like that, right? So there are various bank who are basically coming under BFSI domain, right? And then healthcare, we have multiple healthcare companies, right? Uh, who comes under this, right? So what happens basically, there could be a separate test strategy for this verticals as well. For example, BFSI could have a separate test strategy, like because the domain itself is changed. For banking, you would like to test something different than healthcare domain related clients or manufacturing related clients, right? So it will be completely different. So in that case, there could be one test strategy for BFSI, one test strategy maybe for for the healthcare, one for manufacturing. It can be multiple as well, but just understand that it is not a project level, it is basically on the bigger level, right? Bigger next level, right? So this is how it is. And what basically it defines why what is the need of the test strategy first of all. So let's try to understand, guys. So when we have the test strategy, when you get a project, let's say you get a client, right? For example, there is a new client, ABC, ABC Bank probably, okay? So when you get a new client, then what you have to do is, since you already have the defined test strategy, you can actually very well refer to create your test plan. How do you test plan? So test strategy will basically contains general guidelines, right? General guidelines. It general guidelines, okay, which basically tells that what are the different tools that you can use, right? Because those are the tools that are actually already available with TCS. Those are the tools that we can use. And then what is the governance process, guys, right? Governance process, like who do report to whom and how the, how do you get the testing procedure itself, right? Procedure itself. How do you test it from, and what are the different test what do you say, test methods that you are going to use, right? So this can be this can give you a lot of guidelines to come up with your test plan, right? So that's the reason. And this document is more of a, it doesn't change very frequently, right? So this is more of a static document, less dynamic, I would say, not static, I would say. It's a less frequently changing document, okay, which is not very live in nature, right? Because once you written the test strategy, I think majority of the time it's going to be same until unless there is a new revision or there is a new thought process that it goes into, right? Because this is a global document. This is going to be applicable for across the vertical. For example, all these banks projects are going to use the same test strategy document, right? Hope you are able to understand it, right? So this is the whole plan of the test strategy, and this serves as a, the foundational step for any new client or new onboarding, new projects, etc. So that's the reason it is very important to follow the test strategy and having something ready with us, right? Now, coming back to the test plan. So let's say I have a client called UBS, and UBS might be having multiple what do you say? This might be having multiple projects. Let's say 10 different projects, right? 10 projects. And within each project, there is a separate requirement, isn't it? So, a separate requirement, for example, let's say one project number one, they want to actually do the performance testing, right? Performance testing. Project number two, they want to do only, functional testing probably, right? Because they are not interested for the performance testing. They don't see any issue with the performance. Maybe this is an internal requirement, right? They are not going to expose to the their client, right? And this is important because this is used by huge customer base, right? That's why performance testing is a key, right? something like in ETL. We will take that reference as from the ETL point of view, but you understand this, right? So for each of these projects, there could be a separate test plan because you don't need to test everything, right? You don't need to do functional, non-functional, or maybe the security testing or scalability testing you're not going to do for each of these projects. So each of the projects will have their separate requirement. That's why there is a need of test plan. You can't actually have this test strategy which will have which will talk about various different type of testing. You're not going to do that, right? So this is going to be superset. A test strategy is a superset. However, the test plan is a subset of this, right? So based on the need, what you do. So hope it is giving you some idea. Now what we will do is when we will walk through each of this, steps, then we will be able to clearly identify what exactly is the test plan, and more specifically we will talk about the ETL test plan. How do we create a ETL test plan? I think this is one of the ask from many of you that you wanted to know, right? So just to clarify that the test plan and test strategy is not specific to ETL. However, when we put in the details around this test plan, it becomes more relevant for ETL testing projects, right? Or something where you put the details for how do you test a web application or the automation related testing. So it becomes like it takes that flavor, right? So for now, in the scope of this particular discussion, we will talk about the ETL test plan. So that will be making more sense to you guys. Okay. Now, let's go and try to understand a little bit more from the definition point of view and what are the contents that we need to put it, right? So as I said, test plan is basically focusing on who, what, and when, right? So it is more of a methodical process, right? So who will do, because you already defined how. How plan is already defined in the test strategy, right? Test strategy will take how to do the testing, what are the different, uh, way of achieving this. How part is already defined by test strategy on the group level. Now we have to actually translate the same thing based on our needs in the test plan, right? So these are the different things. So basically test plan talks about who who will actually do the testing, who is supposed to do the unit testing, who is supposed to do the regression testing, who is supposed to create a test plan, who is going to provide a sign off, test completeness. So who part, right? That will come under the responsibility, right? So this need to be articulated properly in the test plan, right? We will go back down and we will show you. Now what exactly need to be tested, what exactly not to be tested, that is very important, right? So what exactly need to be tested is important. However, what exactly not need to be tested also is important. That is out of scope. Otherwise, if you're not clearly defining what not to be tested, people will expect you to cover that part also. That's the reason it is very important that you specifically mention that what not to be tested as well, right? And when to be tested, it talks about the schedule, right? When exactly you want to do. So these are the few things that we will talk about it. Now coming back to the content of the test plan, it basically first talks about the revision history, because this document is written first time, then many people will be writing it, and then people will be approving it. So all those revision history you have to contain on top of it, right? So within this is the section, the document revision history. That's where you put date, version of this particular document, description, what you actually changed it in this particular document, and then authored by and approved by, right? One second, guys. Okay, so so these are the few things, right, that you have to put. So all the version history you have to keep it. So you know that what is the latest revision, right? What is the latest addition on that particular document? Because when you first time when a document is created, it goes into draft plan, right? So it goes into draft, and then it become approved, right? And within the approved also, the various amendment will happen, right? So all those things need to be tracked under document version history. So you know that what is the latest on this particular test document, test plan, right? Second thing, the introduction, right? So second section, it will contain the test plan document will contain introduction. Introduction will basically talks about, briefly it will talks about what is the purpose of this particular document. So that sorry, the test plan will basically talks about it will tell scope, objective, roles, responsibility, exit and entry criteria. This little description basically about this document, right? So it's more of a description about this particular document, like test plan, why this is required and all those things. So I have put it something like this, right? So you can also see that what is the purpose. So mostly the purpose of the test plan document, right? You have to put it here. And then coming back to the main core part of it, right? So these are the basically few things that you have to put it. And then the core part is the scope, right? So in scope, this is something that we are going to follow, right? So scope basically talks about the features to be tested. What are the features that we are going to test? So this is sample, guys, right? That I said based on your project you have to actually put it. So why I have put it basically here is because it may be applicable for you in this, as I said. If there is a project where you only need to do functional testing, you need not consider non-functional testing, right? So some of this will come, right? So from the ETL testing point of view, I have put it here, right? So for example, if you need to test entire ETL testing and you have the budget allowed and everything, then these are the some, there can be few additions or few subtraction from this, but these are the roughly, right, all the kind of testing that we cover, right? So you say, what are the features that we are going to test? Are the type of testing that we need to test, right? Perform, right? So let's say functional testing. Within functional testing, what all? So rather than feature, I would say a test scope, right? So this is the test scope. I would say functional. Okay. I would say test scope, right? Test scope, basically. Not features to be tested. We are not about talking about feature here because in ETL testing we have it's very difficult to define the feature, right? Because in ETL we have the multi-layer testing. You have to test on the various stages, right? That's the reason we have to actually say the test scope. So now say that the functional testing, within functional testing we are actually covering like data comparison testing, data transformation, data completeness, warehousing, report testing, and integration testing, right? So these are some functional testing that we need to perform. Then these are the non-functional. So within non-functional, load testing, stress testing, security testing, right? Now there is a need of regression. So regression testing is basically performed to ensure that if you're changing something or some bug fixes are happening or new functions are new features are getting introduced, we have to make sure we run our regression pack, which is basically covering all this functional set of functional and non-functional tests. It may be a smaller set, but the critical functionality that we need to test as part of regression, right? So this regression testing is also required to be part of this, right? So these are the few things that we have to put as part of the scope. I have actually tried to put all the details here. Probably you'll be able to understand it, like data warehousing testing. What are the things that we are going to test, right? Fact and dimension testing, slowly changing dimensions, type 1, type 2, type 3, whether they are working properly or not, right? So this again, guys, right? So if it is not a data warehousing project, this is not applicable for you, yeah? Or maybe if you are only testing report, only report, right? Report is basically the final, window, right? That's where it pulls out the uh, it pulls out the data from the data warehouse. And report test, there can be only BI report testing also, right? So there is no need to test any ETL function, etc. So based on that, you see that what is required, right? And the integration testing, this is if this is required particularly when you are actually testing end to end, right? So from the data extraction to ETL processing, loading into data warehousing, and then also fetching the data through the reporting layer, right? So if that is the case, then integration testing is must, because you need to understand end to end the data flow is happening properly or not, right? So that's the reason these are the few functional tests that actually you can do it. And within this type, actually there can be various tests, right? That we have already discussed in our many of our videos, right? Like what is the data comparison testing, what is the transformation checks that you are going to perform, completeness checks, and report testing, integration testing, all those things we already discussed before. So you can actually say that, okay, these are the testing that is required. So here we are actually just discussing about the sample, right? Correct. Now, non-functional testing, guys. So non-functional testing, for any data warehousing project, the non-functional aspect is very, very important. We want to make sure that your performance is within the SLA, right? For example, the ETL jobs are, let's say you are loading some, I mean, you have the batch, you ran it today and it's going to finish tomorrow. There is no use of that batch, right? It should be able to finish before, the defined timeline, because when you load in real world, what happens, right? So when the this load happens, loads are basically the ETL jobs are supposed to load it before some time. For example, there is a trading system, right? Within trading system, let's say you have to load the data before APAC market opens. For example, SCFA specific markets, all the markets are opening. Before that, you have to make sure you get the latest data in your database, right? Otherwise, there will be problem with your trading. For example, if I give you example, let's say there is a new market, there is a new instrument that is listed in the market today. There is a new IPO, for example. It is very important that we get that particular update of that particular IPO before the market opens. Otherwise, there is no use of that. People will not be able to trade, right? So that's the reason the performance is very important in ETL projects and for data warehousing projects also, right? So data warehousing where we have to report some critical, feeds or critical updates. It's important that we get the data, the latest data reflected on time, right? So that's the reason load testing is important. So testing on a certain load, which is the expected load, right? Normal load, how the system is behaving, whether the system is able to, produce the data, or whether system is able to process it within the defined SLA and time, and then we are good, right? So that is the load testing. We also do sometimes stress testing. Why we do stress testing? Let's say there is some unexpected volume of data. Let's say instead of 1 million records, we got 100 millions of records. That is unexpected, right? But that might happen, right? Based on your future predictions. So in that case, how in the stress scenario, how your system is behaving, right? Whether it is behaving appropriately, or we basically try to find out what is the maximum load that it can take without degradation of its functionality, or without degradation of its performance, right? So that is something we try to get the maximum break-even point, right? So that is the whole purpose of stress testing. Then security testing, we want to make sure that none of the unauthorized people are able to get the access to the reports, etc. Right? So those are the things that we actually tested within non-functional. That's why I just wanted to give you some more brief around this section, because this is very critical, right? Test scope, right? Now, guys, feature not to be tested or feature out of scope, right? So anything are the testing out of scope. Anything that is not mentioned here, none of this testing. Anything else is not in the scope, right? So for example, in real time, when you actually create a test plan, you will not have all of this, right? I just mention it here because so that you get the understanding of different type of testing. But then it might be the case that you are actually doing only non-functional testing. You are only doing the performance testing, or you are only doing the functional testing. For example, the ETL testing, not even the report testing, right? You are actually doing, let's say, only the data comparison of the ETL testing, right? So in different projects, you have to put actually different things, whatever is relevant to the projects, right? So you have to mention that in case you are doing the functional testing, you say that performance testing is not in scope, or the non-functional testing, security testing is not in scope. You have to specifically mention here, guys. Okay. Now, going to the next topic, that is objective. So what is the objective of this test that you are going to perform, right? So objective of this can be something the simple like this, right? So ensure that all the application meets the requirement, all the requirement meets the application, the functionality, right? Second one is the critical defects are all fixed before the release. That is another objective of this test. And if there is any low criticality, low priority defects, and there is a mitigation plan around it, right? So this is the objective of doing this particular testing, right? If you don't know critical defects or you don't know defects even, then what, you can't do anything, right? So if you know this, we can actually take the better decision, right? And that is the whole purpose of testing, that there is no major issues in the system or software component, right? Now roles and responsibility, this need to be clearly articulated here. What is the role of each of these, stakeholders? For example, project manager. Project manager's job is basically to track the overall success of the projects, make sure that he escalate any issues, any concern, any risk, right? He also come up with the mitigation plan, etc. That is the project manager's role, right? And he also is responsible to liaison with various stakeholders, for example, business and other stakeholders like production systems, BAU team, and all those teams, right? So that is the bigger role of the project manager, right? Now business analyst. Business analyst job is basically to mediate between customer or the business and the technical team, right? Development team and testing team. Now QA and then QA lead. So these are the things, few things that you can go through that I have mentioned it here. This role need to be clearly articulated. In certain cases, development is supposed to do integration testing. In certain cases, development people or developer is not supposed to do that. Yeah. So based on the requirement, based on the availability of the people within the team, how your team is structured overall, what is the responsibility that each of this person are supposed to do, that has to be clearly articulated here. Okay, just to avoid any confusion tomorrow, right? For example, test lead is supposed to create a test plan and send the daily status report or prepare the test completion report for the stakeholders and all. Daily reporting, monthly reporting, and then resource planning, etc. Test resource planning, test schedule, and all those things. This is the job of the QA lead. Tomorrow, if QA lead is not there, then we have to actually see that who can be the backup QA lead, right? So this is the job of QA lead. If QA lead is not doing, then it is his fault, isn't it? So that is the reason. I mean, you actually know that what is your scope, right? What exactly you need to do. This will be documented in the test plan so that you are clearly, you actually know what exactly you need to do. Yeah. Now, entry criteria and exit criteria is very, very crucial part of the test plan, because when exactly you start the testing and when you actually exit the testing. So this is about, so this is not applicable to unit testing or regression testing or maybe, functional testing or anything. This is generic. Yeah. So it says that the test, if you see that the entry criteria, the testing environment should be ready, test data should be available, and test cases that you are going to execute are reviewed and signed off by various stakeholders, and then you have the right level of knowledge to perform the testing as a QA, right? So this is the entry criteria. So the entry criteria is basically for the testing, right? And now exit criteria is basically when you can actually exit the testing, right? So when you have, we have agreed certain level of requirements tested. Let's say 90% of test cases are finished, and you do not find any big significant measure. You can actually exit if the time limit is exceeded, or if the budget is depleted, right? In that case, otherwise we have to test all the functionality that we have agreed. Now there is another exit criteria could be no critical and high defects are outstanding. You have actually able to fix all of them. That could be exit criteria. Or you are run out of the timeline. So these are the various things. There is no only one exit criteria. It can be combination. Again, it has to be discussed with the wider forum, in the wider forum, and with the various stakeholder, that everyone agrees to it, right? Otherwise, you can't, as a testing team, you can't just take a decision to exit, right? You have to actually tell and convey and communicate to the all the stakeholders that okay, we are exiting because of this constraint, right? All right. And now, and this is something to document, right? You have document, then you know exactly when to exit and what are the things that we have agreed, right? Now, suspension and resumption criteria. So there are the cases while doing testing when in a certain moment you have to stop the testing for a while, right? That is called the suspension criteria. So what could be those things or those scenarios when you have to actually suspend, stop the testing? When you found something showstopper. So showstopper is what? Let's say you are actually doing the, running some job, and that particular, and you are not able to run the job because there is some issue with the Informatica component itself, right? So you are actually able to log in, or you are not even able to log in. There is some issue with the server, Informatica server. That is the showstopper, guys, right? And you can't do anything about it. Or something, let's say you need some test data in the testing environment, and you don't have that particular data available right now. You are actually you can't run your test if you don't have data, right? That is also suspension criteria. So you have to actually stop your testing, right? There is a lot of requirement changes which are happening, which are being asked by the client. There is no point of testing that existing software, right? Because if there are a lot of requirement changes happening, what is the use of testing that? So you have to actually stop your testing. Environment that we have discussed, let's say data is not available, or the Informatica server itself is not available, or some Jira tool is not available, and all the resourcing challenges could also be one of the suspension criteria. People who are testing, responsible for testing, let's say out of 5 people, only one is available. Actually, you can stop the testing as well in that case, right? Or none of them are available due to certain crisis or some problem. In that case, you can actually suspend the criteria, and this need to be actually communicated in the forum so that everyone is aware of it, right? What could be the resumption criteria? It is very simple, guys, right? So all the blockers, because of that you stop the testing. Let's say that is resolved, then you actually resume the testing. Yeah. Now this is very important, guys. So you have to clearly articulate what are the environmental requirement is there for you, that you have to mention, right? So what are the tools that you need? For example, for test for running your SQL query, you need the SQL developer tool. For Linux, you might need Putty software. Informatica for your running your ETL jobs. If you are doing some sort of web testing, so let's say if you are doing some BI reporting testing, report level testing, right? In that case, you would like to automate certain features so that you can actually run this. So if you want to use the Selenium to automate that, and that a tool should be available with you. Java should be installed so that you can actually automate if you are using the Java as a language to automate with Selenium. Python if you want to use this for your testing purpose. Jira for test management, test documentation, or test reporting, bug reporting, etc. Confluence as even SharePoint to share some documents or keep your documents, evidences, etc. Test evidence document, or whatever, right? So these are some tools that you should have the access, right? And you should be well prepared with all of this, right? So they are the tools that we are going to use, test tools. Now configuration management tool, let's say you are using automation suite, then you actually need the GitHub, right? That's where actually you are checking and checking out your automation test suite, right? Now test environment, what are the things that you need? Let's say Linux environment you need in the testing environment. All web browsers you need for browser compatibility testing, Safari, Chrome, Firefox. If it is not there installed in your machine, then you need to do that, right? So these are some things that we need actually for your testing. So this comes under environment, right? And then test schedule. So this is completely you need to be put in your test plan when exactly you are going to do what phase of testing, right? For example, requirement analysis, what is the start date, end date, and how much the effort is taking. Test scenario, test case creation, when you are writing the test case, from what to what date. It can be more detailed as well, but I just said that these are the some sample test schedule that you have to put. So you have to put start date, end date, and these are the milestone, right? You have to track it, right? Let's say you are doing the test creation and you exceeded the time limit. You have to make sure you are actually able to write all your test cases, within the defined timeline, right? If it is exceeding, because of XYZ reason, let's say feature itself is not available, requirement itself is not available, then in that case it's not possible to write the test cases for them, right? In that case you have to write this risk and assumption. There could be one more section, guys, risk and mitigation, right? Mitigation section. what are the risks that you find, right? Okay, fine. So you can just do that. One second. Let me highlight it. Risk and mitigation. This can also be one of the section, right? And you have to put all these things, guys, when you are going to do the functional testing, production release, and all those things, right? So I hope that this give you some idea, right, what a typical test plan should contain, right? Because it will give you lot of understanding. So this should be your master plan for testing any project related artifacts, any project related activity, right? However, as I said, this test plan is very specific to particular project, right? If you are testing, for example, web-based application, then then this particular test plan will not be applicable because we are actually talking more of a ETL testing perspective here, right? ETL data warehousing or database testing perspective, right? So this will not be applicable to them. That's why I'm saying the test strategy is the organization level, which will give you general guidelines. Test plan is more specific and covering the very detailed testing or key artifacts and detailed activity around the particular project, right? Now, as we already discussed, guys, what is test strategy in the beginning? So this talks about how, right? How we are going to do this. This is basically test approach. You can say test strategy or test approach, guys. Interchangeably you can say, right? Test approach. So test approach, it will, as I said, right? So it will also talk about what is the bug life cycle that you are going to use. So this doesn't need to be defined in your test plan. Basically, this should be as part of your test strategy. Like, when you encounter a defect or bug, it should go to new, then it should go to open status, then fixed status, then after that ready for testing. After testing, you say, completed or closed. All those different kind of bug life cycle, right? Different stages of a bug life cycle that has to be actually properly put down in the test strategy. Okay. Second, the severity and priority. So when you get a defect, what is the severity of that defect and what is the priority, right? Severity generally the impact on the application or the system, how impactful it is, right? That is the severity. And then priority is how fast you want to test it, right? So I'll give you just example of severity and priority, and then that will give you idea, right? So severity is basically, let's say you have a banking application, uh, and within that banking application, there is a uh, there is a section to generate the bank statement, right? Bank statement is not, people are not actually going to use it every day, right? In that case, when you actually hit generate a bank statement for a particular month, it actually errors out and it doesn't do anything, right? It will give you say that something is down or not available or something like that. That is something that it is crashing, right? It crash. So the severity for that could be critical, right? In certain cases, it is generating, okay? It is generating, but probably it is taking time, etc. So based on that, criticality, severity can be critical, high, medium, low, right? And for example, priority has nothing to do with the impact on the system. It is more of a reputational issue, right? For example, let's say I have one bank, and bank's name on the website itself is wrong. For example, you have ABC Bank, right? So instead of ABC, it's a ABCDEF Bank, something like this, right? Which is a big reputational loss for the bank, isn't it? So, but that is basically got the urgency to fix, right? You can't be here. All the functionality of that particular website, bank transfer, net banking, statement generation or beneficiary account and all, everything is working fine. Only thing is there is a spelling mistake, right, on the bank website. That is basically priority and that is critical, right? So that is based on that basically we define the severity and critical priority, right? Hope this give understand. If you need more details, I have already done a video on severity and priority. You go and watch within the testing, a playlist. Yeah. Now, type of testing, guys. So, what are the testing that we have? So, you have to actually document as part of test strategy. You say functional, non-functional, within functional, what are the testing that you want to do for a banking client, for example, right? Security testing is must have testing for a banking client, so you have to actually add that under non-functional. Security testing may not be required for uh, for a application, for example, mm, for example, where you are actually there is an app for displaying the match, live match, etc., where you are actually just displaying how many, what is the details about that particular match, etc. In that case, security may not be important. So based on that, right? I mean, we have to just see that based on what client. That's why I'm saying the test strategy should be more aligned to a vertical or more of a kind of a project, kind of a client or the customer that we have, right? So you can choose what are the things. So this should be actually documented, and then we have the testing techniques. So what are the testing techniques that we are going to use? Let's say boundary value analysis, or equivalent partitioning, or regression testing, risk-based testing, etc. I mean, it will again depend, right? So again, test strategy should cover all of them, right? Now it will also talk about how do you, what is the customer communication strategy, right? What is the strategy? How do you communicate over the email, over the chat, and all those things, right? I mean, or maybe something, how do you address your customer? What is the, SLA defined with the customer? What is the turnaround, etc., etc., right? All those things need to be defined here, right? Escalation matrix, etc., should be defined here, yeah? Now, documentation, guys. So within the documentation, what are the tools that we are going to use that we have to define? For example, you have the Confluence or SharePoint that we have to define here. All the details should be provided. Now, in terms of test deliverables to the client, this also has to be defined here actually, right? So, for example, a test case document, or defect report, or maybe daily status report, weekly status report. These are the various deliverables, isn't it? Are the test sign off document, or testing evidence, all those things. What are the things that we are going to deliver to the client? Those things need to be defined here. Now, tools and governance process. So, what are the tools that we are going to use? So, this is basically more of a, so when we are doing, a lot of testing, ETL testing is required, for example. In that case, the clients, those kind of clients will be actually, so that the idea is basically what are the tools that company is supporting, and our test plan should be actually aligned to that, right? So we don't want to rediscover the wheel again, right? So that's the reason we have to document it here. So hope this gives you some idea. Guys, this video is a bit longer, but I thought that, I will give you a glimpse of what basically goes into test strategy and test plan. But again, I am saying the test plan and test strategy in many companies, or small companies, or medium companies, medium sized organizations, it doesn't need to be the different document. It can be the same document, guys. Okay. For example, you have a very small company where there are 2 or 3 clients only, right? In that case, you can have only one test strategy document and a test plan document. Same thing will go in the test plan as well, right? So it can be combination of these two. But it will again, then test plan will be more specific, but it should be clubbed within the same test plan document. Test strategy things also need to be mentioned, right? But as I said, in the bigger organization, it is very important to define a very specific things in test strategy for different type of client base or the verticals that we are working. So, but there is no hard and fast rule, right? So hope you understand. And I thought that I'll give you some glimpse about it, guys. Okay, because see, I can't just tell you that you need to put these particular things in a test plan. That's why I'm saying this is the sample test plan that can go based on your requirement, what exactly need to be tested, etc. Based on your requirement, you can actually cover, right? So, but then these are the few things that when you go for interview and people expect you to answer. I hope after watching this video, you will be able to answer all those questions which they expect, right? And also, guys, just let me know if you need any, more specific things to be covered here. Uh, I thought that this can be helpful, so I just did it. And I know that there will be a lot of question answer, so don't shy away from sending a comment. I regularly look at your comments, guys, and but due to time constraints, sometime I am not able to address them on quick basis. But then be rest assured that I will, if something I feel that very important, I will try to do a video on that, right? That's all, guys, for this video. And yeah, I will see you with the next video. And do comment and do suggest me the new topic as well, guys. Yeah. So then I will do another video. Maybe I think one of the next video or after that, right? I can do one video related to test estimation, right? How do basically we go for the estimating, how much the testing effort is required for a particular project. Because in nowadays in Agile, uh, we uh, we have to actually provide the test estimation, right? Estimation from your testing team, right? How much you need to how much time you need, what is the effort that is required to test these particular things and all, right? So test estimation technique is something very important that we actually do it for evaluating big projects or even the medium sized projects, right? So let's see if I can do one video for that. I think that will also be helpful. Do let me know your thoughts. If you really need that, then I will try to do that video as well. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you. And yeah, see you with the next video. Until we meet next time, happy learning. God bless you. And happy Navratri to all of you once again. Bye.